All right. Hey guys, how's it going? Another Friday, another week gone. Today I have a handful of characters to go over. I also wanted to talk to you about scaling characters and things like that. Let's see, chat. How's it going, guys? Q&A hype. Hey. So let's see. So we're just gonna get into it. So Manny has sent this Wonder Woman model. We're going to start with Manny's model. And I've lightened up the background just to try it out because the cartoon rendering and filtering stuff, it just works better with a lighter background. Not that I'm going to be rendering this cartoony, but I've just been experimenting with it, and I might redo my my ruler file to kind of have that cartoon render and filter built in. I'm working with Joseph Druss to kind of work on a better filter, so it doesn't have such warbly lines, and I'm trying to get the lines to be colored by the color that's underneath, like the old school hand-drawn cartoons, and I'm trying to get the shadows to be colored instead of gray, so fingers crossed that I'll be able to figure that out. So that's what I'm working on with Joseph. Now, Manny made this model before he started the 3D Character Workshop, so he didn't have my ruler file at the time. I want to show you guys, if you have a model that you have made before you had the ruler file and the scale is not matching or whatever, I'm going to show you how to match the scale to the ruler instead of the ruler to the scale, or vice versa. Okay, so I'm going to show you that. Yeah, it is complex. I tried it myself, Allison, and it's just like, I don't know what I'm doing. Honestly, I've tried to mess with the filters. I can get the line to adjust, but I can't get it to accept the color of what is coming through with the outline that it's using. It's just really weird. Anyway, I'm trying to get it figured out. Okay, so Manny, are you here? I don't know if Emmanuel's here. I hope so. But if not, he can watch this, the recording after the fact. So what I have here, I've loaded in a bunch of models that I'm going to be going through during this Q&A session. But I have my ruler file, and I want to turn on the floor because you guys all know what this ruler file looks like and how it works. It's 2 meters tall, or 20 centimeters tall, or 200 millimeters tall, depending on the context that it's being used in, right? And the floor matches the size of the ruler. And if you open up this project first, and then you open your Z tool after that, your Z tool will be in that same environment at the same scale, whether it's too big or too small, it will match. Okay, so I want to show you, if I have the floor on, you can see that she is quite large as compared to the background floor. And it's not that it's wrong or it's right. I just want to show you guys how to scale it down and how to bring the ruler into this file. Okay, so if you go to the ruler and you scroll down to export, you can see right here, typically this is set to 100. Okay, and it's set to 100 because that's how you go back and forth between Maya. Okay, that's the scale. But that scale also also takes into effect inserting or appending from one Z tool to the other. Okay, and the default for that should be 10. Okay, so I'm going to change this to 10 and hit enter. You'd think it'd be 1. Sometimes it's 1. If it doesn't work, it's either 1, 10, or 100 typically. Okay, so I just did a test before I started the Q&A session, and it's 10. Okay, so I'm gonna go over to this Wonder Woman file, and if you want to append something from a Z tool to another Z tool, the best thing to do, or how it works, is you want to select the subtool that you want to transfer over, and in this case it's the ruler. I'm going to bring the ruler in. Okay, so I have the very top subtool selected, and then I'm going to hit insert, and then I can select this ruler, and you can see that it's not correct. It's not the right size. So we're going to start adjusting the ruler first, and then we'll adjust everything to that. Okay, so if you Allison, that's funny. Okay, so to fix this ruler, we're going to select the ruler subtool. Then we're going to go to geometry, and you can see there's a position and there's a size. Okay, so we're going to fix the size first. And the size, you can always check the ruler file itself to see what these numbers should be. So as long as you select the ruler, and you can go back and forth and make sure the size is 2 in XYZ. So that's the correct size now. That's 2. And so you can actually bring in the ruler at any size. It can be gigantic, it can be small, and then you just select the ruler and you can change the size to 2, and then it will fit the floor. But now you can see that the position is off. Okay, so you can close size. Under position, you need to go, it's -1. So that put the ruler in the correct location. And front to back is a little more tricky. So you can either just move it by hand. It really doesn't matter, like front to back, where it's at. But it's -0.05. Okay, that's where it's supposed to sit. And now we can send this home. Now our ruler is set up, it matches the background, it's good to go. Okay, so now we can match our character to the ruler. And how we do that is we're going to use the now infamous pizza boxes, okay, which is underneath the gizmo right here. It's just transpose all selected subtools is what it's called, but for ease we're going to call it the pizza boxes. Okay, the pizza boxes, they will respect masking, so we're going to mask this ruler off. Well, I thought it was a box, but okay, we're going to mask this ruler off. Okay, and then we're going to grab something that's not the ruler, like the hair, or let's even do the feet. It doesn't matter, honestly, it doesn't really matter. What I'm looking for is I want the gizmo to be at home base. I want it to be at 0, 0, because we're going to scale from there. I'm going to turn on the pizza boxes now. We're going to grab all of our friends. I don't know why the hair didn't come along with it. Hold on a second. I got to figure that out. Okay, maybe because it's above the ruler. I'm going to put it underneath the ruler. I don't know why when I turned that on the hair went like that. That's weird. The hair and the base are both being trippy. Okay, now it's working. I don't know why it was doing that. It's still doing it. So if I scale it, it's not gonna, the hair and the base are not gonna come along for the ride. So let me make sure. There. Okay. So basically what I did was I just, the pizza boxes work on selections. So like if I just did Control Shift and drag to clear my selections. See that? It goes, that's everything, that's nothing. If I tap, I'm just holding down Control plus Shift. If I tap on the hair, that's basically selecting just the hair, but I'm going to clear that selection. As long as everything is solid, that means it's going to come along for the ride, okay? It's, okay, why? These pants must be, yep, they're masked, okay? The pants were masked, or the skirt, okay? Oh, thanks, Mike. Let me see if I'm, yeah, you got to make sure everything is showing. You don't want to be anything hiding. So let's test it again. Okay, now we can bring it down. And we can also show the ruler, and the ruler is masked off, so it's not going to be affected. Okay, I can move the gizmo down to where her feet are. I'm not really thinking about, I'm not going to include the base in this height, but you can see this average female height now. And Wonder Woman is not average female height, but just for the sake of scaling, okay, what in the world? That must have had a masked vertice up there, a masked point, so it didn't come along for the ride. Okay. So I'm gonna have to bring her back up to here, and then clear the mask off of this. Yep, there's a little bit masked on the back of her top there. Okay. Okay, let's try it again. There we go. Okay, So do you guys understand what I'm doing? Does that make sense? Okay. So average female height now. Okay, so she's a little taller than average. And I just made her feet be at the base and the base actually be under the floor. So I can kind of measure. Now we have her scaled properly. I can push her into the ruler. So the middle of the world's kind of splitting up the front. Okay, now we can just hide the ruler, and we know she's proper scale, and the ZBrush brushes are all going to work well at this size. Sometimes when you get your character way too big, you may notice that your brushes won't shrink small enough, or they won't get large enough, and you have to turn off dynamic on your brushes. Pain in the butt, right? And even at this scale, sometimes my brush doesn't go small enough. But anyway, yeah, I just wanted to walk you guys through how to scale your character, but how to bring the ruler into your character file rather than bringing your character into the ruler file. It's much easier to append one single subtool than it is to append your entire character to the ruler file, if that makes sense. It's really easy as long as you adjust the ruler file to fit the world. You know what I'm saying? Like by typing in 2 and typing in the numbers and moving that ruler to where it should be in the world. Now we're good to go. So, all right. So I'm going to save this now that we have it scaled. I'm just going to call it Wonder Woman 2. Okay. So now what Manny wanted to know was he was struggling with the just like creating her clothing, and I wanted to talk about the face as well, and I wanted to talk about the hair. So blocking in the hair like this is a good idea to start with, but you'll almost always either want to do one of 3 things. Okay, it depends on where you're going with the hair. If you're going to a video game, there are 2 choices. You can either do chunky, blocky hair like I teach inside the main workshop, or you can do hair cards like Mike Black did with his character, which are just strips of polys that will represent the hair that you then put hair texture on that has alpha, and they're usually, the material is usually an anastrophic material. I can't say it properly, anastrophic. But it has like this, the highlight sheen that goes across the top that gets stretched. I think it's anisotrophic. I don't know. Anyway, that's that's the 2 options when you're going to a game character. The third option is if you're going to print it out, you're going to go and do the chunky hair most likely, or sorry, the third option I was thinking of was real-time rendered, not real-time, rendered inside of a render engine. You can use a hair simulator like, you know, like in Maya or something like that, and actually use real hair. If you're just going to either animate it for film or television, or just render an illustration, you can look at doing that. Typically, I like to do chunky hair, and the reason why is because I like to print out my models and I like to make game characters out of them. So that is why that's why I taught how to do chunky hair in the workshop, because it serves two beasts, right? It serves, I can 3D print it and I can make a game character out of it. That's typically why I do it. But that being said, I still like to separate out as many strands as I possibly can. And if I'm trying to do it quickly, if I'm trying to make chunky hair fast, I will use that Macon hairbrush. It's the one made by Benjamin Hale that you can find on the Funky Bunnies website. That one is fantastic. Or if you have the time and you want to take the time and actually really make the hair look super nice, I would either use Dylan Ekron's hairbrush or Danny Mac's hairbrush. There are a handful of hairbrushes out there. I think Steven Anderson has one. I would make one, but I just don't see the point because there's so many out there. So that's what I would do. Mario, can I do a hair card tutorial in the future? I would love to. At the yeah, it's not that it's technically kind of difficult, but it's really not that hard to do. It's just very time consuming, and you kind of build it up like you're laying shingles on a house. So you can, it depends if it's short hair. If it's short hair, it's kind of like you start at the bottom and you put all your cards around, and then you do the next level and you offset them like bricks or shingles, and then you do the next one and the next one, and you can kind of do the same thing with longer hair, but it's more strands, and you start with the strands that are underneath and you just build up and build up. You kind of just build it up like real hair works, and you know how it grows from the head out. And it depends on your poly count, it depends on the shape of the hair and all that kind of stuff. So, but it's still a good idea to block out your hair. That's always a good idea. So, okay. Allison. Yep, you'll get lice, right? Okay. All right. So let's check out the face really quick first. I'm going to start with these eyes. I'm just going to they're really well done as far as the eyes themselves are concerned, but I'm going to, oh, my menu's, there it is. Okay, it is working. I'm going to try and do a mirror and weld. Nope, it has subdivisions. Okay. So I'm just going to delete the higher and then do a mirror and weld. And then she's cross-eyed. We'll fix that. Just center the gizmo in one of them. Whoa. Oh, pizza boxes are still on. Remember to turn off your pizza boxes, kids. Yep, or else your whole model will go for the ride. Okay. I'm just going to shrink these eyes. They just feel too big. Let me see what's happening inside here. Okay. You guys. All right. So now that I lowered the eyeballs themselves, I need to go in here. I'm gonna hide that hair, and we're just gonna go work through this face and try and get it to look a little more appealing here. Okay, I'm gonna actually get rid of the subdivision levels. And it would help if she had a mouth cavity. To those lips would really look better if it actually had a mouth cavity. And then I'm just going to move these down, these eyeballs. And I'm finally, you guys are finally getting back to getting that Z-Remesher lesson done now that Z-Remesher 3.0 is out. Thank you, Pixelogic. Just going to bring those points down a little bit. Soften this up. Let's see. I know I'm horrible. Haven't bought pizza. I'm just smoothing out this lower eyelid. And then I want to use pinch on this one to tighten it up. And also, I want to show you guys, I've been thinking about this, and I'd love to hear what you guys have to say about it. But occasionally, actually more often than not, what will happen is in production, the the riggers in the group, they would love for you to use a base mesh. Okay, so basically, and this happens more often in film than it does for games, but it still happens in games quite a bit. More and more so now that there's you can use more polygons to do it with. But the reason why you use a base mesh is because it already has good deformable topology, especially with the face. And if you use that topology and you just kind of mush it around to match your face, then the riggers are able to just automatically skin weight to the face because of the vertice count, because the vert count is the same. As long as you don't cut anything or add loops or anything like that, all you're doing is mushing it around. As long as you do that, then it will save the rigging department just tons and tons of hours of painstakingly weight mapping that face, if that makes sense. So the reason I haven't taught that in the course yet is because, well, first I would have to come up with a nice base mesh to hand out, and then do a lesson on how to do it. And like I said, it doesn't happen very often, but I just did a freelance project where I used one, and with this Z-Remesher stuff, I know a lot of you guys, including myself, it's still frustrating. So the Z-Remesher is fantastic, but it's still frustrating. So I'm kind of thinking that maybe with this new Sculptris Pro that's in place, and with the new Z-Remesher, I'm wondering if it might be a better workflow to actually use a base mesh and push it around, because base meshes there's something that you can just get out there. They just exist out there, and if you find a good one, it's worth the purchase, and they're not that expensive. I've seen some really good ones for like $20 or something like that. And then, or I just make them myself and use that over and over again. We actually did use a base mesh for Disney Infinity that we would use over and over, and but not everybody would use it. So the reason I haven't handed it out yet is because I want you guys to learn topology and what good topology looks like and how to do it, rather than kind of quote unquote cheating and grabbing somebody else's geometry and just pushing it around, right? So anyway, yeah, about wrap 3 to align a base mesh to a high poly. Yeah, that I haven't tried that yet, but I really want to. But just I'm right in the middle of this, and it makes me want to go. I just want to go grab that base mesh and mush it around and fix, match it to this face. Start there and then start going from that, right? But I just did it before this Q&A. I wanted to try it out with Sirloin, because a base mesh, if it's a good enough base mesh, it can really be morphed and pulled into shapes that are way different from each other. You can use the same mesh for a child that you can for a male adult, a female adult, and sometimes really pushed geometry. Like Sirloin is really pushed. All of his features are scrunched way up in the top of his head, and he's got this ginormous chin and this really tiny little skull, right? And I wanted to see if I could pull it off. Yeah, so Stu, that's exactly Dylan. Dylan talks about it all the time. They do it at Disney Feature all the time. They have a base mesh, and in between features, in between films, they'll actually tweak their base mesh a little bit to make it even better. They'll cut it, because during production they can't change the base mesh because it would kind of it would kind of make the whole project be null and void. Right? You can't change it in the middle of a project. For example, when they were doing Big Hero 6, that entire lineup, minus the robot himself, that entire lineup of characters, including the antagonist and everything, they were all done with the same base mesh, same exact mesh. They're just pushed around. So I'm kind of toying with teaching you guys how to mush around a base mesh. So I just want to, while I'm in the middle of this, I just want to load up what I did with Sirloin and show you guys, because it's kind of funny to see, but it works. It really works. Student only live stream. I was going to show you guys Yeah, I named it 13B. So see this? This is a base mesh that I pushed into place to match his head. So it actually came with an ear. So I put the ear in place. I didn't project that, but now it's got good topology, right? So it's like it has eyelids now that are actually nice. The rings are nice, and I didn't have to battle with ZRemesher, right? I just got the head as close as I possibly could in the Sculptris Pro mode, that I could then see where I was going with it. And then, you know, I got to a point where I'm like, okay, I'm ready to now use that base mesh to squish everything to it. You know, you can start with the base mesh and just start squishing that without doing a block in or anything, but it's really difficult. So it's much easier to have something where you do not care about topology whatsoever until a certain point where you're like, okay, I think I'm ready to bring in that base mesh and push it around. So yeah, Daz 3D uses that for sure. Robert. Okay. Disney used the base mesh of a pig to do almost the characters in Zootopia. I believe it. I completely believe it. I didn't know if they used a base mesh for those or not. I was going to ask Dylan, but I don't know if Dylan worked on Zootopia, or I can ask Tyler. But I'm sure you're right. But it's interesting how far I was able to push this. The nose is getting skewed. Here, let me turn off dynamic. The nose is getting, you know, because it's pushed out there so far, it's starting to get pretty low and choppy. But there's like, you know, the chin is getting kind of pushed. Lucky, I'm trying to get there with this workshop. That's my goal, is to get there with this workshop. I want to talk about retopology more, and, you know, just get there. But as far as like going from ZBrush to a film rig, that's different than a game rig, but not by much. Like I've talked about before, the main differences are in the with a film mesh, you actually get to have subdivision levels. In a game mesh, you do not. You can't subdivide it in a game engine. They're trying to get it so you can eventually, but right now you can't. So that's one of the main differences. And in film, since you do get subdivision levels, you actually get displacement maps. And their UVs are based on, they're called UDIMs rather than, so for example, that Zenyatta character, I squished the entire Zenyatta UVs mapping on one 4K map. He fits entirely on one 4K map. And say for a film, you would essentially, I've seen a T-Rex done where the T-Rex is split up into 5 4K maps, and each section is a 4K UDIM is what they call it. I don't even know what it stands for, but it's split into 4 different chunks, and you map each of those chunks like that. So what else was I going to say? So you get displacement maps. Displacement maps are grayscale maps rather than normal maps. Normal maps are those colorful purple and green and pink maps, and those are basically faking the lighting direction. When the light hits it, it's just faking it, but there's no displacement in the Y, you know, based off the surface. So it's not going to affect the silhouette at all. But in feature films, when you get subdivision levels, you have enough geometry there to actually displace it and move it in the Y, so it would change the silhouette based on those maps, if that makes sense. So that's like the main difference. But yeah, I don't know how much I want to get into, you know, teaching the difference between games and film. But one of your goals was animation, not games. I come from 2D animation background and wanted to see if I can transition to 3D somehow with ZBrush. Yeah, Lucky, there's, let's see. Because I know Dylan doesn't talk about that in his workshop. He just talks about getting appealing characters. But he doesn't get into you know, how to retopologize them for film. I'm sure they exist. Gosh, I'm trying to think. I'm trying to think of schools that aren't giant schools that would teach you, like Gnomon or something like that. You could learn that stuff at Gnomon, but yeah, I don't know. I'll have to think about that. I'll have to see. Yeah, Mike, it was just one giant 4K map. Yep. Anyway, this is kind of cool, right? Kind of a fun experiment. So, okay, let's get back to this one. So with her, Manny, I would actually, just looking at this again, I would possibly cut her off at the, just underneath, probably underneath her breasts, like, to make it a separate piece, to make the upper and lower two different pieces. You'll get more resolution out of that. And I would cut her hands off and make them a subtool as well. So you'll get more resolution out of those hands. U-dimension, okay. Thanks, Art. Okay. Yeah, I'm just not very knowledgeable when it comes to film. I've never worked in film, but I could get an interview with some film people maybe and talk about those exact things. Okay, so with this eyelid, the connection point is too far out. Instead of, it needs to make it look like the eyelid is wrapping around the eye. And right now, the eyelid is just too far forward. So we need to pull it back. And I might have done that when I took away the subdivision levels. Feature animation. So feature animation is film. That's one and the same. When I talk about feature animation, I'm talking about like what Disney does, what DreamWorks does, what Blue Sky does. Those are all feature animation, right? That's film to me. I'm not talking about like, it's kind of the same though inside of CG animation, like the new Lion King that's quote unquote live action. It's kind of the same thing, right? It's just more detail on an animation ready character or whatever. So I gotta hide these eyebrows too. They're kind of hanging off. Give her a bigger forehead. Pull these cheeks back in space. Pull her nose back. Pull her chin out and her lips back. You want to make it, make her, I've shown it before, but make her nose, lips, and chin all line up like this. I mean, they have some variables, of course, but for the most part, they line up. So it's kind of a guide. It's more of a guide than a rule, but it's like, you don't want to have your lower lip sticking out unless it's like a personality trait, or not personality, a caricature trait, if that makes sense. No, yeah, Carl, don't use perspective. Only turn on perspective every once in a while to check your model, but do not model in perspective. ZBrush does not like it at all because it's perspective is faked. So you don't want to model in perspective. These eyes are driving me crazy. I'm gonna fill them with white for now. Sort of white. Just to kind of get, yeah, they're just really deep into the head. I know I maybe kind of big. Let me see. Oops. Okay, let me see how big this eye is inside of here. And I just need to line it up. Why did that go? Okay. Something like that. Okay. Now I just need to try and work these eye sockets to look better. Yeah, CG Cookie is good, especially if you're going to be like if you're looking to go into making short films for like Netflix. Like that Gen X was made with Blender, and it was really well done. But if you're like serious about getting into films and things like that, I don't know how much Blender is going to help you in that respect. I mean, I just don't know how much information you can find on Blender that's like being used in film today right now. I know there's a shift happening right now where a lot more people are using Blender. But if you're wanting to get on at like a large studio like DreamWorks or Disney or whatever, you'll want to learn like Maya or something like that. Okay. I'm just trying to push these. I'm trying to get a better eye cavity going on right now. Is what's happening. Just gonna try and define that brow shape, and it's pretty close to her eyes actually. So I'm gonna bring it down. And this forehead is really bulbous, so I need to push that in and make it taller. Bulbous. Okay, and then, hey Emmanuel, Harry, how's it going, man? So I'm just kind of working this through and talking through it at the same time. Ramazan, I do actually. It's already in the course, so it depends. Are you rendering in KeyShot or in ZBrush? Which one are you wanting to render in? Or I don't have anything as far as rendering in anywhere else, like in Maya or something like that. But I do have lessons on rendering in KeyShot and in Maya, or not in Maya, in ZBrush. And, whoops, gosh. So I'll show you where it's at. So if you go to the 3D Character Workshop and you go to your library right here, My Library, and you guys won't see this, but if you go into Additional Training and Resources right here, click on View, and it's right here, Rendering in KeyShot is one of them, okay? And then there are a handful of student tutorials and other tutorials. So this guy, he works at Illumination Entertainment, and I really liked the way he rendered his models inside of ZBrush. So he put together this tutorial for me, and I shared it with you guys. So you can go check this out. And he walks you through exactly how he set up his render to look like this. If this is kind of how you want your render to look inside of ZBrush to render it out, you can check out that one. And then Scott did a really nice one. Let's see. Oh, here's rendering clean poly paint by Scott, and then ZBrush set views tutorial by Scott. There's a whole bunch. Anyway, check that out. Here's lighting setup tips by Tim. Yep. So that's where you can find a lot of tutorials on rendering. So I hope that helps you out. Oh, you couldn't do text? Oh, okay. So you've been watching me like destroy your model, but you haven't been able to say anything? Okay. I'm just kind of working out the eye sockets, bringing this out too. And then smoothing it down. Okay, what I did, Manny, is I took away some of the high resolution subdivs, so that's why she kind of got fuzzy, as far as like not crisp anymore. And then I'm just kind of going back and reworking some of the surface areas here. And if you look at the shape of her nose, it's very squashed instead of like pointy like this. So I want to make it like larger like this. And it's bulbous on the end, and then she has the two nostrils on the side are separated. So just kind of make it, just look at the concept and try and get as close as you can with that. And then you can actually come in here. Let's see. Let's push these in a little more. And then I was saying to these guys, Manny, you should probably put a mouth cavity in here. And then make her face. Can you see how round her cheek is? From her eye down to her chin is really round. And here you almost have it kind of concave right here. So make sure it's nice and round and it matches. And then you can come in here with a pinch brush. Let me turn this up a little bit. All right, Robert. Yikes. Good luck, man. So I'm just running the pinch brush along here to define this mouth. Hope everybody's all right. Yeesh. Okay, and then what we can do is, yeah, this mouth, you can just kind of pull it back and make it wrap around the teeth, which you have going already, which is good. Let me pull this out a little bit. So see this silhouette that we have going right here, this right here. I want to look over there on my left, but I'm going to actually adjust it on the right. I'm just using the inflate brush and just kind of inflating it out a little bit. See, now it's rounder right here. I do that. I do that quite often, where I'll just turn the head to the position that I need it to be, and then I'll work on the opposite side, but I'll look at the other side as I'm doing it, if that makes any sense. Okay. And then I still need to work on these eye sockets and build up. Let's see. And build up the eyelids. I need to bring those eyelids back. I kind of smoothed the whole thing out, Manny, and pushed it all in just so I could figure out the eyes better. And then I'm going to bring the eyelids back in. But I'm going to run a pinch along this eye because you want a shelf right here to catch the light. See that? And I know you had it in there before. I'm just putting it back in. See that? You want, yeah, and then you can do the tear duct if you want. Okay, and then I also have this kind of ridge. I'll put the ridge in there just to help me, just to help guide where the brow is. It's not going to be that strong in the end. Same with this cheekbone line. It's not going to be that strong. Whoa, that was inflate, not pinch. It's not going to be that strong in the end, but it's good to put it in there just to help you define where that is. And then you can come back in and smooth it out. You know, if that makes sense. And then you can pinch around here too. Sometimes it takes a couple times. Whoa. And this nose is still shaped like this. I want it flatter, and so I need to pull those nostrils down and pull the center up. And also look at the space between the upper lip and the nose. And then the nose and then the eyes. So it feels like her nose needs to be a lot closer to her lips. Not a lot closer, but closer. Yeah, man, I'll get there. I'll get there. I just wanted to cover the face first. I'm gonna squish the whole head up like this. Now her nose is too pointy. Let's bring that back. Okay. I'm gonna see if fill will work. Maybe inflate right here. Okay. Let's see. Let me see if I can pull those eyelids back in. And I know you don't have the geometry to support it right now, but hopefully there's enough there that I can make it work. It came out really shiny. Like you have a lot of metalness on there. Okay. It takes on the value of the material that you had on there before you baked it. So check out those materials and make sure they don't have any shininess on there before running the bake. Other than that, I would have to take a look and see what's happening with it. Okay, I'm gonna try and get this mesh flow to help me instead of work against me, because it's kind of twisting in here. And right here, right in this area right here, can you guys see that? This area right here, that's actually the deepest part. If you put your finger in your eye socket, you can feel how deep that is next to your nose. So that should be rather deep right there. And then so that's concave in that socket. And then the out here is actually convex. So as it comes out and makes the eyelid, it actually has some puffiness back there. So let's see. I'm going to try and push it in with the detail brush. I don't know that I have enough geometry here to support what I'm trying to do. Looks like it's sort of working. Yeah, maybe not. Stick your finger in your eye. Okay, I don't know if that's going to be deep enough or not. I'm just doing the inverse of on a pinch around the eyelids right here. And then a regular pinch right here. Try not to get too close. Then I need to pull the corner down. And then you can shape it after that. So after you make the eyelid itself with your pinching, then you can use the move brush to just kind of move it into place. And get the eyelids to be smaller. Like next to the eye, closer to the eye instead of so far away. She doesn't have that big of eyelids. So it's like, let's make them first and then push them together. I pinch that one too much. I can't really find out how to export at a high resolution apart from doubling up the dock size. So what are you trying to say? Like when you're rendering in ZBrush? Is that what you're trying to do? Trying to get that tear duct back. And then I just want a super light lower eyelid right here. See if I can cut it in just barely. Yeah, that's, oh man, I typically don't render in ZBrush for that reason, but yeah, like Sean said, you mess with that in the render settings, but your dock size does have something to do with it, and doubling it's going to make it huge. But what you would typically do is it's almost easier to make your dock size double and then import your tool into that rather than doubling your dock size and then redrawing it. Because as soon as you double your dock size, it's going to take your model and smash it down to the canvas. Then you have to hit Control-N to clear the canvas again, and then draw your model in there again, and then hit Edit so it pops it off the canvas. Overton, I really wish there was. I'm working on lessons where I cover this stuff that is not in a Q&A session. You know, I'm redoing, I've been talking to Scott Briscoe about it. What I'm doing is, I'm doing a Z-Remesher lesson first. That's what I want to do first. And then the second thing is, I'm redoing the male bust mini course, you know, with Luigi. I'm going to redo that, but with Mitch drawings instead of Luigi drawings, because I've commissioned him to do some amazing drawings of these candy shop owners. There's a whole bunch of variety instead of just one head. And I'm going to be talking about anatomy and how to block it out and all that kind of stuff. And I'm thinking about doing the how to match a base mesh to it at the same time. And we'll just go through, we're going to talk about Sculptris Pro mode, talk about the Z-Remesher, all of that stuff, including head anatomy and face anatomy. So, and it'll be broken down so you can go through and it'll have like, you know, the video check marks or timestamps. That's what I want to say, timestamps. So you can go look through there and say, oh, I want to learn about this. Boom. So hopefully that happens sooner than later. Okay, anyway, that's kind of, Manny, that's kind of what I would do to this head, is just work through it like that and put in, you know, just go ahead and put in the geometry like this and the anatomy like this, just kind of work through it. Let me just see a little more. Probably pull this ear back a bit. And then in. This head in. Yeah, I'm sorry. I wish I knew a better way to find that stuff. She has a really small chin, doesn't she? Holy cow. Wow. Very small. I don't know if we're going to be able to get that to look appealing, having a chin that small. Without making her neck just look gigantic. Her neck is already, yeah, her neck is a bit too long right now as it is, but yeah, I'm going to pull that chin back out. It's just not, it's working in 2D, but in 3D it's just, it looks like her face has been, like she doesn't have teeth. Yeah, they're not listed because they're just for you guys. You got to have the link. Otherwise, the world could see them. Okay, so Manny, you really wanted me to talk about like the clothing and how I would do this, the gold stuff. Well, first of all, I wouldn't skin tight over the breast like this. So first of all, I would pull the center out because that cloth is kind of stretching between them, right? It's not making a valley in there. So something like that. You can kind of see it underneath this strap. I mean, if anything, the strap is pushing it in a little bit, but not like skin tight, if that makes sense. Okay, and then as far as the skirt thing goes, I wouldn't build it like you're building it. I would build it like a bikini bottom, where she just has a bikini bottom underneath there, and then I would build each panel separately because you can tell each of these panels are different pieces. So it's not all made of one piece of cloth. It's like layered. If you look at the film, it's layered leather, right? Each one is a leather piece instead of one solid something like this, right? So I would first start with like a bikini bottom and then do layered leather on top of it, just pieces and pieces. Okay, and then yeah, let me unhide this hair. And I talked about the hair before, but yeah, you can work on that. And then let's see. Yeah, this face still needs a lot of work. Anyway, so what I would essentially do with these leather pieces after you get the bikini bottom thing built, what I would do is just use this topology brush like I teach in the workshop, and just draw the pieces on and then add thickness. So if you watch the sirloin, when I'm making sirloin, and you watch how I make those boots, that's exactly how I would make this. Exactly, no different. So basically I would draw the topology on, like if this was a piece, the first piece, I would kind of do, and these arms are in the way. Let me move. Okay, so essentially I would just draw this on. Maybe one more across here. Then turn your draw size down to 1, tap on the surface, and it made it. You just can't see it. And then hit split unmask points, down arrow, and now I've selected my new piece. I'll solo it so you can see it. It's right here. Okay, and then I can just grab this color and fill it so you can see that it's blue. And then just go through and just edit this piece. And what I've been doing is kind of what Dylan Ekron does, and he just makes his clothes all single-sided until the end, unless you need to otherwise, like I'm doing with sirloin. I've added thickness to certain things, but for the most part, it's just yeah, it's just like this. And I can actually add some more subdivisions on here. That's pretty low, so we can just come in here and just insert a couple more edge loops. But when you do that, you can see it doesn't take on the roundness. So you have to go in there and like just by hand kind of scooch it out to make that roundness. Or when you build it, just build it with a little bit more topology. Or I think you can actually, it might be better to bevel those lines instead, and then they'll slide across the surface. Sometimes it's easier to retopologize things like that in Maya or whatever with Quad Draw, but anyway, then eventually you'll just add thickness to this. And that's your first bit, right? Your first panel of leather. And you can just tuck this up underneath that upper skirt thing and then pull it out on the bottom so it's not going into her leg. So this blue bit would be gone, if that makes sense. Okay, and so that's kind of that first piece. And then you just make another one. I mean, you'd make the next one and then the next one. This center piece does look like one solid piece that's actually being that's wrinkled. You know, it has a wrinkle right here rather than being two pieces. I'm not sure. You'll have to maybe check out the live action Wonder Woman to see how that one's built and mock it a little bit. Okay, and then as far as this gold stuff goes, it's the exact same thing. You just draw it on the surface and extract it. That's it. So it's not rocket science. It's just you might be overthinking it. You know, so basically I would think about it like I'm just looking at it here, and I'll grab my topological brush. Okay, and then I'm thinking about it's going, and then draw your lines all the way through. Okay, don't hold back and stop at the points. Draw all the way through. So I'm going to crisscross like this, and then like this. And that's making this diamond right here. And then you can go this way, and that makes that lower diamond. So you kind of have, you can just build it as it is right there, right? So let's see. So bump, 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 bump. That might be lower. I think I'm making it too large, and I don't know why this didn't give me a cross. But sometimes I need to draw a line down the center in order for it to work. There it goes. So I have a triangle here, and then it goes up. Let me draw this one again. And then this will just start going over like this. I'm drawing it way too big, that's for sure. And then just going and making the belt. And then every time you make a quad, it's going to draw the quad, right? And then just go through and go around the back and keep it going, and just add your geometry. Add your lines. Whoops. Whoop. And you can just clean it up by holding Alt and dragging. So it doesn't need, let's see, it goes like this, so it doesn't need that bit. Yeah, so this is the kind of the W piece, if you can see it. And then this triangle is this down here, making this diamond. So you could probably pop them after you make this a real thing. You could separate this diamond off of there, or you can just clear it off and draw it again later. Do we ever add thickness to all the clothing parts? Not yet, Randy. I haven't got there yet. So does that make sense, Manny? Keep it single-sided just for editing purposes. So you just want to keep it as easily editable as possible till as long as possible. Okay, so it's just easier to keep things single-sided because it's much easier to edit a single-sided object than it is something with thickness, right? I mean, think about if you're because as you're building out these pieces, it's basically you build it and then you react, right? You're like, okay, is that belt too thick? Is it too small? Is it too wide? Is it, how is it making the hips look now? Are the hips looking too small now that I have the belt on there? And if you had thickness on, well, like you do on these short things, it's much more difficult, much harder, I should say, to edit these short things than it is because they have thickness, because you can't grab both sides at the same time, right? So it's easier to grab just a thin piece and edit the heck out of that first. We would add it at the very end of the modeling phase. Yep, and we're not quite there yet. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to turn this to draw size 1, tap on the surface. Sometimes it doesn't always work. Okay, there's that. And then I go split unmask points, arrow down, that's selecting that subtool. And now I can just start grabbing this and pulling it out like forward in space. See how it's just much easier to edit this single-sided poly right now. This single-sided thing. If this had 2 sides to it, it'd be kind of nightmarish right now. Does that make sense? So now I can come in here and just edit this point. I can pull it up so it has a steeper thing, and I can pull these down. More of a steeper W. I can make this belt thinner pretty easily by just dragging these points up. And then just get rid of this crease. And I don't know what kind of design it has in the back. That's another thing to reference. Yeah, I hardly ever do a mask extract. Hardly ever. I know there's a lot of modelers that do it, but I usually don't. And that's one of the reasons why, is just because it's just, I mean, it makes your models lumpy, for one, and it's just harder to control. So with, for example, this top, right, I would go in here and you can hide the edge like this. Okay, and then I can hide the bottom edge. It's already, looks like it's already open. Okay, so I hid this one loop edge. Now I can hit auto groups. Maybe it didn't, oh, it didn't complete. Okay, because there was, it's kind of weird back here. Whoa, I don't know what it's doing. Try and maybe hide. There we go. Looks like it's all okay. So I'm going to try and auto group that, see if it'll do it. There we go. Okay. So see this kind of mess it was making up in here? It was pretty messy. So now what I can do is I can just hide all of that mess and then hit delete hidden. And now I have a single-sided mesh that I can use. It'll just be much cleaner. And I don't have to edit the background. I don't have to edit the back side of this. It's just easier. And then I can also do, let's see if I can try. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Reconstruct subdiv, yeah, it doesn't look like it'll let me. But you can now Z-remesh this if you want to make it even lower and even more manageable, because the lighter the mesh, the easier it is to manipulate, if that makes sense. Okay, so let me just try, just really quickly, I want to try and do a Z-remesh. Let's see, where are you, Z-remesher? Okay, target, yeah, we'll just try that and see what it does. Nope. Let's go 0.2. There we go. So something like this, that's just lighter, just easier to use. Do you project to make cloth skin tight if you need it? Yeah, you can totally do that if you want. But now I can turn on dynamic sub D and it's still just as clean, but now it's easy to manipulate, because now what I can do is I can come in here right along this edge, even though it's going to be covered in that gold, right? But if it wasn't, I can easily come in here and just clean this edge right up and make it nicer. See how it's, if I had a whole bunch of points along that edge, it would be a pain in the butt, right? But now, since it's lower, it's just easy to make things straight and clean. And you can look at things from all sides. Yeah. And then if I were to, if you wanted to use this piece for like the bikini bottom, every time I say bikini bottom, I think of SpongeBob. But what I can do with this is I'm going to switch over to mask pen, and I'm just going to mask this out. Let me turn on symmetry. Mask out the portion that I want to keep. Shaking my whole monitor. Just kind of make a part that goes like this. Then I can hit Control W to put that into its own polygroup. And it looks like it grabbed some on the interior. Let's see. What do I want to do with that? Okay, I'm going to just hide it and just hit auto groups. So it's going to put all that, the little island pieces in their own group. Okay, now we have this. Invert selection, Control W will put all of this in its own polygroup like that. And honestly, I think, so what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to just, I want to Z-remesh this so it gives me something I can use. I don't know if it's going to allow me to use this right here. Oh, I'll show you a trick. Okay, say if I want to expand that purple poly group up into this edge, because I want to keep this edge, what you can do is go to the gizmo and hold down Control and tap on that, and then hold Control and tap on the outside, which will invert the mask. Then go back to draw and just finish masking up that tip, and then hit Control W again, and now I've captured those extra poly groups. Okay, so now what you can do is yeah, I just don't want it, Sean, I don't want it that clean. I want it jaggy like this. And I'll show you why. It's because the new Z-remesher will just clean that right up, and it doesn't matter. So this Z-remesher, I'm going to change this to keep groups. Okay, poly count, I'm going to do 0.2. Hit Z-remesher, and hopefully, crossing our fingers, there it goes. Kind of did it. I need some more geometry though. So let's try 1. Let's just do 1. Okay, see, check that out. It's just, it's not that bad. Let me give it a 2. Because it's still creating some weirdness. There we go. Perfect. So I'm gonna Z-remesh this now, just to kind of clean this business up. There we go. Okay, so there we go. Now what I can do is just delete everything that's not the bikini bottom and fill it with blue, right? Fill object. And now we have our bikini bottom that we can adjust. Looks like it matches that W pretty good. You know, we can just come in here and adjust it and make it work. Anyway, that's just a really easy way to make new geometry now with the ZRemesher. It's not on the surface anymore. So you were saying project. Let me show you really fast how you do that, okay? So I'm gonna hide everything except for this bikini bottom and the body. So we have, looks like a Barbie now, right? We have this. We can bring this up a little bit, just as long as it's close, and then we can just hit, just bring this a little tighter. Okay, then we can just hit project all right here, and that's gonna make that super skin tight and wrap the surface like this. And this little spot right here was out of the envelope when I did the project. That's why it didn't get captured. So all you need to do is push that closer to the surface, or even smooth it. Oh, it looks like it was masked off or something. I don't know what's going on. Anyway, just get that closer, put it in the envelope. Okay, and then we can actually come in here and adjust this too if you want. Just bring it closer so it actually will project into that seam, and then just hit project all again, and it just, so it'll capture that back piece. See that back thing? Now what we can do is just go and do an inflate, which we can do it with the gizmo. Sorry, I didn't mean to do that. There we go. So bring the gizmo up here, and you can see if you hover over this yellow square, it says control to inflate. Just hold control and just bring it up in space, and boom, we have it. There's our new piece. And we can fill it with this blue, and then hit dynamic subdivisions, and it fits. Fits pretty good. Okay, so now that's just a fast way to get it to snap to the body. What am I doing again? What do you mean? Which part, Overton? So I did a project all, and that projected everything and matched it to the surface. Does that make sense? So now it's like skin tight or whatever, but now you can go through and pull it back out of here if you want, smooth it. What's the difference between scale and inflate? Well, scale is going to do, it's going to scale it on all axes the exact same way. It's basically going to take what you have and make it bigger, just literally larger, right? Or smaller, depending on scale. If you inflate, it's going to push every face out on its normal. The way the face is the way the face is pointing is called the surface normal. It's going to push that face out along its surface normal. So it's going to it's like blowing up a balloon or something, or, you know, it's just making that whole thing. So here's a good example. If you had two faces pointing towards each other like this one is going to go in this direction, and this one is going to go in this direction when you inflate it, and they're going to cross each other like that. Does that make sense? Like, it's if you were to scale it, the whole thing would just get bigger and smaller. Okay, so there you go. We can unhide everything now. And just kind of, does that make sense, Manny? With the gear down here? You can kind of see what I was going for, hopefully. Let me grab this yellow right in here. It's kind of a mustardy yellow. Let's make it a little more saturated. Grab this and fill it. There you go. And then I can grab this red, same red that's here, fill this object. So essentially I would just draw the same W across her chest the way I was doing it. You can add more or less geometry, it doesn't matter. Now when you get to a piece like this, and you don't have anything to draw on because, you know, between her legs is just like there's nothing there to draw on. So what you can do is just bring in temporary geometry right there, give yourself something to draw on, and then draw on it, and then delete your temporary geometry. You can use a sphere, you can use a plane, you can use anything you want just to temporarily put right in that spot. You can even make the temporary geometry have some folds in it that then you can draw on top of. And then when you draw it, it will come with the folds, if that makes sense. So I've talked about, so what button did I push? Just project all, just project. So it's right here, project all. Project all will just take whatever, you have to have it in a subtool that's above the thing that you want to project to, I think. Maybe it just has to be showing. Anyway, it'll just project everything in one subtool and match it to the surface of another. So it's super helpful. Okay, so yeah, this hair manual, just you can, if you just want to rework the hair. I talked about the hair earlier in the stream, but make sure you see this gap back here. Make sure you fill that gap a lot. You know, don't have a gap back there. Also, her head and her neck is too long, so you probably want to squish it down. Show us a quick test on temporary geometry. Okay. So I did it with, that's exactly what I did with Sirloin too. So when I made Sirloin's head and I snapped it, looks like he's gray now. When I snapped that new geometry to his head, I actually used Project All. And Project All will, respect masking as well. So say you wanted to project the head, but you didn't want to project the lips, right? So you would you would mask off the lips so you wouldn't so it wouldn't get captured in the projection, and then you just project everything else. So man, no worries, man. You'll get there. You'll get there. You shouldn't don't feel you know, don't feel bad about it. You'll get there. But does that kind of help you as far as where, you know, let's look at the before and after. Cuz it would take me all the Q&A session to, I think, to make her oh boy. See you later. 2019. That's the Phantom crash. We got the Phantom crash. Sorry about that. Oh yeah, the concept art does have a huge neck and a really small chin. So I don't know. Let's see if we can recover that. 5.6. Maybe this one. Let's see if it'll open it. Oh, looks like it only went back this far. I don't know what this one is. 3103, that's early. Yep, this is as far back as it went. There's floating eyeballs. Hey, kids. All right. Just clear out this. Yeah, crazy. Anyway, it would take me the rest of the Q&A session, I think, to clean that up. So we're not going to... I think we're going to stop there. But I do want to load in the older... the original, just to look at her head. Where is it? So mine's probably doesn't look as nice as this, actually. But I wanted to show you the structure of what was happening in the... Is this it? So mainly in her nose, and yeah, you have just in her eye shape too. Her eyes are a little, yours is probably better, but yeah, I just wanted to show you just the structure, mainly front to back, not really from the side. the back of her eye is like just slightly too high. Pull that down and then make her nose a little thicker. You actually did a good job with the chin. Looks pretty good here. But here, let me clear it out. I think I spent too long on it. Yeah, there you go. See from the side? It's from the side that's the biggest thing. Let me hide the hair. And see how her bottom lip's sticking way out and her chin's kind of down here. So let me... just a little, just some of the depth stuff. And her cheek's a little too far out, and how close her eye is to her nose. You pull that back into her head, stuff like that. So I actually like this head shape. Okay, so to add thickness to the belt, you'd inflate with the deformation tool. Yeah, you could do that, or you could do, yeah, just not inflate, you use extrude with the, oh yeah, so you're talking about offsetting the belt from the body. Yeah, you can just use deformation inflate for that, for sure. But to add thickness, like to actually physically add thickness, you just go into the Z tool, the Z modeler, and just do extrude, polygroup all, and then add thickness that way. If that makes sense. Okay. So this was a student, I don't know, you see here, this is a student that was just asking about the new Z-remesher techniques and getting it to work after you merge everything together. So I was just gonna quickly show how to do that if I can get it to work. So I would not merge the hair, the eyes, or the mustache, or the shirt to the face. So let's make sure the eyes are separate. I'm going to separate the mustache off of here. So split hidden. Okay. And then, yeah, you know what? I'm going to keep the shirt because the shirt's kind of like, it could be representing his body. So I'll stitch that together. And then I'm going to add his eyelids into the head. So let me merge those eyelids down into the head like that. And then I'm going to pull them out a little bit because sometimes you get better results with Z-remesher if you have more of a surface there to work with. If it's really close to that surface, it has a hard time, you know, Z-remeshing it. Just trying to, I might have to hide it. Bring this in. Okay, there we go. So I'm going to duplicate this off and then stitch it together. So using this, we're going to send the gizmo home and reset it. Make sure perspective's not on. Okay, and then do a remesh by union, which will stitch everything together like this. If you guys haven't done this yet, this is a really fun exercise to do. This is the lesson I'm working on right now. But okay, I'm going to accept this, and then let me see. It's yeah, okay. Before I do that, before I stitch it together, I want to Z-remesh it, or at least apply the dynamic subdivisions so it actually has more geometry to work with. So I'm going to delete lower. Now it has this much geometry, which will be, it'll give us a better result. You don't have to have lower eyelids. You can. It's not necessary, but it's completely up to you if you want to do it or not. And you can pull them out. You can pull lower eyelids out just manually if you want as well. But let's see, or upper ones for that matter. It doesn't matter. Okay, so let me do the same thing again. I'm just going to do a remesh by union, stitch that together, hit accept. Now we have more geometry to work with. What I want to do is put everything into a single polygroup, and then I just want to do a mask. This is an experiment, by the way. I'm just kind of doing it right now. Yeah, it doesn't matter because it's going to Z-remesh it anyway. It doesn't matter. You just want them close. You just want it so you have enough geometry to tell Z-remesher what you want it to do. Z-remesher is a pain in the butt still. Even with 3.0, it's like herding cats, trying to get it to do what you want. It's still just an exercise in madness. But it's better than it was, but it's not perfect. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I just want to make a mask. So the eye mask like this, and up and over the nose, except for I want symmetry turned on. And just kind of go like this. Because these are the loops that you really want. And this is why I wanted more geometry, so I had more geometry to mask out. Just hit Control W and it'll put that into its own group. And then what you can do is kind of make your upper and lower eyelids. And you just want to make a circle with those. And it really doesn't matter, like I said, Lucky, it doesn't matter if you have more geometry on top than on bottom. We'll see what it does, but I'm just trying to get this to make a circle. Jeez. Maybe there's not enough. I'm going to do a mirror and weld first. See if I can do that with masking on. No. Let me do it. Mirror and weld. Because it doesn't have the same... It wasn't symmetrical, I guess. The Z-remesher. So let me try this one more time. There's still not enough geometry here. I need more geometry. I'm gonna subdivide it one more time. And then delete the lower. There we go. There's more geometry. Because what I'm doing is I'm basically looking for... I just want to tell Z-remesher which way to go with the rings or the loops. Well, that didn't make it nice. So if you ever don't like the color that it gives you, just isolate that poly group and hit Control W again, and it'll let you cycle through colors. Since the green was too close to the yellow, sometimes if the color is too close, it's going to ignore it. It'll just say, no, I'm not going to do that. So now I have this center piece. What you can do is isolate this and then do it auto groups, and it's going to make those center two its own group. And then you can do another mirror and weld to make them in the same group. It looks like it added it. It looks like it's this color, but it's in its own group. I'll just make it a different color so it looks a different color. And then you can just continue and put the ear in a group. You can make here I'll kind of show you what I would do with the mouth, right? You just kind of go across the nose, down around here like this, and go like that. That would start to make the mouth ring. And then you can do the tip of the nose in one. Let's just isolate this group. This is just stuff I've been experimenting with. And whether it's good to do or not, I don't know. I'm trying to decide. So I'm putting that in its own group. Okay, let's just try it from here and see what it does. So we have this, and we'll just go Z-remesher, keep groups, poly count 5,000. That's probably going to be good. Symmetry's on. Let's try it. See what it gives us. Sometimes the results are great. Sometimes you're just like, what in the crap? You could, Lucky. It depends on what you want to do, but yeah, see, so a lot of this is good, and then it's like, what is this? Why is it giving me this rogue triangle in here? And it's really kind of lumpy. And it did keep this group around the mouth, but it kind of messed this up. So what I'm going to do is just hit Z-remesher again now that we're at this point. It'll go faster and it'll clean it up. See that? Now it's not bad. See? Not bad at all. It still has some issues, like up here. So, but this isn't bad, and this is its own poly group right here. Let me make it a different color there so you can kind of see it. But it has that mouth ring around there, and what you can do now is just you can make a better mouth ring inside once you push the mouth bag in. Like Overton, what you were saying is, like I can just mask this out right here, and then put it in its own poly group, and then just, these are just things I mess with just to try, right? And then I'm extrude poly group all and just push it into the face. Boom, like this. Let's do it once, twice. So there we go. And let's just Z-remesh that and see what it looks like. Not bad. Not bad. And then you can just smooth this out. So sometimes Z-remesher can be your friend and sometimes not so much. So this is actually what it's doing. See how it puts, when you do keep groups, it actually puts these edges around all the loop borders. So you can just come in here with smooth and just kind of smooth it all out. Just clean it up a little bit. Does it around the eyelids and stuff. Then what you can do is just come in here with the mouth and just grab, move, change your range to 3 and just close his mouth up. You can totally do, honestly with this new method, you don't have to do edge loop mask border. That kind of gets worse results. When you're trying to be precise with it, it gets worse results than if it's just that rough edge. You know, the rough edge that I just did? It's, when you have it rough, it's just like, I'm just going to do whatever I want to do, you know? And it gets it closer. So, yeah, this is just experimenting with 3.0. And now I can just inflate to close this up. And smooth it out. And then just kind of work the mouth around like this. And there you go. So, and that's what it kind of looks like underneath. And then you can just keep going from here and just start to edit his chin and neck and head and all that kind of stuff. So now we have enough geometry on his face that we can work with it, you know? So I hope that answers your question. I'm trying to remember who was asking me. I can't remember whose model this was. All right, Allison, no worries. Thanks for hanging out. Hope it helped. So now we can bring our parts back, because doing all that Z-remesher, every time you do it, it shrinks the model. So you can come back in here and just kind of rework it back in. Bring those eyelids back. Make it fit. Make him, he looks angry. He's like, you Z-remeshed me. Trying to figure out, why is that outer ring there for? Which outer ring? Around the mouth? This right here? The reason why is because that's how your muscle goes. Your muscle goes right here, and then see, smile. That's what makes that smile line right there. That muscle, and then it goes and wraps around your mouth. So it just helps, like when you go to smile, and that's the ring that you want to have happen. So when if I were to make him smile, that band will help him smile. Hope that makes sense. And it goes up behind your nostrils, right there. And it creates that crease. So when you smile, you can feel it. So smile really hard, and then run your finger around it, you can feel it. Smile really hard. And then, like, since I did take the time to make lower eyelids in geometry, I could work that portion in and just kind of pull that out and make it into the lower eyelid like this. Just use that geometry. And then I could use the detail brush to even push this in right here. Just like that, and we're done. Gosh, he looks like he needs some coffee. I haven't slept in days. Oh my goodness. Sometimes yep. Smile hard. Anyway, I don't know why I'm still messing with this, but that should give you a good start. Plus his eyes are a little too small. I would make them larger inside of his head so they don't bulge so much right here. You can just tap on the surface like this and turn on local symmetry. Just make them bigger and then push them inside of his head. And then that will reduce the bulge that those eyes are making. Maybe even a little bigger. Then after you get that done, then you can just make his eyes match the eyeballs. They're a little too high in his head now. Bring them down, pull them in. Now we can wrap the eyelids around them better. Anyway, I could keep messing with this all day. Let's make him tired again. So tired right now. I've been up since Wednesday. Hey Tiago, how's it going? Yeah, Rick and Morty character. He needs some cheekbones. Bring that out. Anyway, keep going. I could keep going. So, okay, the next thing I wanted to show you guys is I was working on a brand new lesson that's going to be added to the 3D printing section. Corinne brought it up to me. She's like, I sent my model off to a printer, and now it's coming back with failed areas, and she was wondering why. Corinne, are you here? I'm not sure, but so her print had pockets of air inside of it, and you really couldn't tell if your model had pockets of air in it inside of ZBrush until the live Boolean stuff came out. And I'm going to show you a really quick trick on how to view inside of your model to see if your model will fail or not. Okay, so I'm gonna make a lesson on this, but I also wanted to cover it really quickly during this Q&A session so you guys could see it and just so you can understand how it works really quick. Okay, so here's Corinne's awesome sci-fi soldier model, and this has been decimated, so you can see that it's all really tight triangles, okay, really small triangles, and this is exactly what you want when you're going to send it to a print. But there's some areas that will make this print fail, specifically if you're sending it to a resin printer instead of an extrusion printer. With an extrusion printer, air pockets don't matter as much because they're not going to fill with anything. But with a resin printer, those air pockets will actually fill with resin, and that resin will never cure. It'll be like a pocket of uncured resin inside your model. And that's exactly what you don't want, okay? So I was going to show you exactly how to do that. Hey, what's up, Jacob? Do I have a good way of twisting it? Oh, gosh. Thank you. 20 seconds. I always forget that stupid thing. Okay, Corinne's model. Here we go. So I'm just zooming in. Okay, so basically just thin and thick areas are what you want to pay attention to, not necessarily the pockets of air, okay? But I'm gonna show you right here. Okay, so what I was gonna say, Jacob, I would just take a cylinder and just mask it off and then just rotate it. Or there's inside the gizmo, there's different kinds of deformers right here that you can I think there's one called twist. I can't remember. Flake multi-slice. Maybe skew. Try one of those. There it is, twist. So just put that twist modifier around a cylinder and you can twist it. So I'm talking with resin and filament. So filament is an extrusion printer. It comes out like a cake decorator, plastic being shoved through a nozzle, right? It's coming through that nozzle. Resin is the printer prints in slices. So it starts from the bottom and it slices and it prints it flashes the resin and cures it either with a laser or like a flash of light. And then it fills up with resin again. And with a Formlabs printer, it pulls it out of the resin. And with an EnvisionTEC, it pulls it into the resin. It just depends on what kind of printer it is and how it works. But usually the cheaper printers, the extrusion printers, are just plastic that's getting pushed out. And the surface quality of those printers is not the best. So you'll want to have thicker than normal areas. Like I'll show you when I set it up. I'll show you where it's too thin and it fails. So here we go. Okay, so I was going to show you how to check inside the models. Yeah, those are both filament. Yep. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what it's extruding. It's the same thing. Resin is liquid resin that's cured by UV light. That's how those are the best. Those are by far the best. That's what all of my prints are printed on, a resin printer, not an extrusion printer. Okay. So basically what you can do to check this is you make a cube. Okay. So I'm going to say append, and I'm going to append a star right here. Click on that star. And then I'm going to open up my insert multi-mesh brush. And then you have to have the gizmo showing in order for this to work. But you make your gizmo show like this. And you can either go into this, this gear and pick a polycube like this, or you can click one of these cubes up here. Just a cube right there. And it's just ready to go if you do that. Then you just raise it in space above her head. Okay, and then I want to move the gizmo down towards the bottom just so I can grab it. But I just want to encompass her entire body with this cube. Here it's a little dark. Or it's a little light. You can't see it. There we go. Okay, so I'm gonna just put this cube. It's like a big Borg ship over the top of her head. And it doesn't need to be that large. It just needs to encompass her. So as long as she fits inside that cube, it doesn't matter. Yes, Lucky. There's no filament in a resin printer. There's no filament. It's a gallon of liquid resin. Yeah, prints. That's a film. Yeah, resin prints don't smell like waffles. They're resin, so they're not. It's not being heated. So with an extrusion printer, the little tip, the extruder, gets hot and it melts the plastic, and that's what you smell. It's melting the plastic and extruding it out. So those are, if you're on a low budget, those are the best way to go. But if you have the money, it's much better if you can get it printed on a Form 2. That's the best resin printer out there right now, in my opinion. And Jake is a student of mine inside of 3D Character Workshop. He actually competed in the Creature Box student challenge, and he works for Formlabs, and I'm trying to set something up with him to print student models, you know, and try and get a good deal and try and get it figured out so Jake can print stuff for us. So anyway, okay. No, Lucky, just go look up Formlabs. Go look up a Form 2. They're the size, they're really small. They're not that big. They're perfect for home use. That's what they're for. They're not that toxic. They can be if you spill it and get it everywhere, but if you're careful with it, they're kind of expensive. They're about $4,000, I think. So it's not like you would only want to get one if you're going to be serious about it and, you know, start printing off a bunch of stuff. But if not, then I would just go buy, you know, pay somebody to print it out for you, if that makes sense. Okay. The only printer I recommend you buy ever is a Form 2. That's like my favorite printer of all time. So anything other than that, I don't really have an opinion as far as like which one to buy. That's an extrusion printer. I'm not a huge fan of extrusion printers. So anyway, if you can't afford a resin printer, just pay somebody to print it out for you. That's my recommendation. Okay, here we go. So what we can do now is I have this cube. What I want to do is change this to subtract over in my subtool list. So make sure you have subtract selected. Then turn on live boolean, and that cube will go away. If I hit Shift F, you can see it right here. It's actually still in space. Okay, now if I start to pull it down in space, it's going to start to chop her, right? Okay, see this? Let's zoom in so we can see it. So if I raise that up, that is how that's going to print. And can you see it has an air pocket behind her head in front of her hair? See that pocket? Whoops. This piece right here. Oh my gosh. Come on, Gizmo. Right here. This is an air pocket. That's going to make resin sit inside your model, fill inside that hole. So you want to make sure you fix that. And how do you fix it? You grab this, you grab your model, right, just like this, and then you come in here close. Okay, you come in pretty close, and then you can get your inflate and just try to inflate this closed. It's being really slow. Let's make sure I don't have a mask on. There we go. So see, it just starts to close up that hole. You just need to be careful that it doesn't accidentally affect the outside of your model, right? But you just come in here with inflate. See how it's just closing right up nicely? So that's just on that one single level. So you're going to have to grab your cube again, grab the gizmo, and then raise it up in space until you can see that hole again. And you just have to inflate that hole over and over on every single level until that hole is closed, so there's no air pocket that can get in there. Okay, so that's problem number one. Problem number two is if I bring this down, so there's another pocket right here in the shoulder. See that shoulder pocket? I'd need to inflate that closed. And then we come down here and you can see the key. So this arm is actually keyed out of the body, which is really nice. But if you raise it up, it actually has this ring stuck in the key. So if I hide this arm, you can see how it has a ring on top of the shoulder, and that ring is actually inside of there. And so when you print that out, you're not going to be able to stick that arm inside that body because the ring is in the way because it has an undercut. So you're going to have to slice that ring off so it's not part of that key, if that makes sense. So if you have a filament printer and it's like an extrusion printer, you're going to have to do a lot of cleanup afterwards. Like you're going to have to either use acetone to melt the plastic together, or you're going to have to do a lot of sanding. There's a lot of work to get it nice and clean. With a resin printer, like this, you've seen this before, right? This thing right here, there's zero cleanup on this. This is smooth. I didn't have to sand that at all whatsoever. It just came out of the printer like this. I had to glue it together because all these pieces were keyed and put together, but no sanding, zero. There were some connection points where the supports were on the back. Those had little tiny ticks where you break those off, and they leave like little tiny ticks. You can come in and sand those down a little bit, or file them. I use a little file and just file those down. But as far as the surface itself, zero sanding, none. It just comes out just like this. Super pretty. Okay, so where did the ring come from? It's part of the design. So let me show you the arm. See the arm right there? It's just, this ring was part of it's just in the model itself. But you can see how it's being kind of stuck in there. And then if you click on the body itself, you can look up underneath here and you can see how that ring is being cut out of there because it was live booleaned out of there. So hey guy, it's solid. It's not hollow at all. It's just solid resin. That thing's beefy. And Jake printed that out. So Jake is the student I was telling you that works at Formlabs. He printed that out and he printed my dinosaur, the cowboy riding, the dinosaur riding cowboy, not cowboy riding dinosaur. That'd be a thing, wouldn't it? Okay, so let's go back to this this cube here, and we'll continue evaluating this model as we go down. This is so essentially how the printer is going to print. It's going to start down here, and it's going to print up like this. But the base will be printed separately from the body. That's why it has keys in the feet. So it'll actually just start with these feet and the keys in the feet and just print up like this. And you can see that there aren't any problems. It looks pretty good. And it keeps going up. And this little flap right here is quite thin. See how thin that is? That's probably a little too thin for an extrusion printer. So I would double the size of that thing. So, and how you would do that is you would go in there and make it so it has, well, I would take the inflate brush and just lightly inflate that area, that whole flap, to be thicker in the center. It can still be thin along the edges, but the center needs to be thicker so it can support itself. And so it has enough space for because with extrusion printers, if you're going to do an extrusion printer, the head of the thing is only so small. It can only go so small. And like if you think about the thickness of that line of plastic, that bead of plastic, that is as small as you can go, right? So any smaller than that is just not going to print at all, or it's going to make holes, or it's going to skip. It won't print it, right? Think about, it's like a cake decorator. If you're trying to like go back and forth with a cake decorator and you're trying to make something that's really thin, it's just not going to hold up. You know what I mean? So you just kind of have to think about that when you're building this stuff. Yeah, a resin printer would most likely print that, and it would be fine. It would need to have the support, to support it. It would probably be better if it was thicker, just a little bit thicker. But yeah, it would print better. It would have a higher success rate, I guess. Okay. And again, here's the holster. You can see the holster right here, right there. That is way too thin. The thickness of the wall of that holster is too, and it even gets thinner as it goes up. So that will fail for sure, for sure. So, but this is a really great way to test your models and see how thick things are and if they have internal air pockets, right? So you can just make a cube and just make it go up and down like that. Yep, Robert, even with a 2 micron extrusion, your surface is still gonna have steps. You can see the surface. You can see the steps in it. With a resin printer, you can't. The only way you can see the stair stepping is if you like spray it lightly with primer and it catches the edge. You can sort of see it then, but not really. It's a beautiful thing. Okay, and then you can see it still has this thin area by this as the flap is coming up and attaching to her body. You can actually go in there with some filler, with some mesh, and just fill this in so it can support itself better. Because you're not gonna see up inside of there unless you're actually like physically looking to see if it has thickness or whatever. But typically you won't see it, something like this. So I would actually either use inflate and inflate that shut, or put some physical geometry up in there. When I worked at Disney Interactive, we called it bubble gum. You just like chewed up bubble gum and shove it up in there. It's kind of like that. You take a sphere and just skew it and shove it up in there to push it up in there. Yeah, Formlab printers are resin. They're resin based. Okay, so does that help? Does that make sense, you guys? How that works? That's how you can test your prints with that new live Boolean. The high temp resins are what they are using to print the molds for pewter casting. Yeah. Yep. There's still no matter. There's not an extrusion printer that exists on the market today that you will not see the stair steps. Yeah, that's just how they work. So anyway, hope that helps you guys. And that is where I'm going to end today. Q&A. If you guys have any other questions during the week, feel free to send them to me or ask in the community. So I hope you guys are just modeling like crazy people and making some awesome stuff. And I'm gonna, like I said, I'm gonna try and get some lessons done, trying to get the course updated, and I'm in course update mode now. So hopefully I can get some stuff going. And I had to get my marketing push done, so that's done, and I can get into updating the course. So anyway, all right, thanks everybody. Yep, it's been a lot of fun. So yeah, like I said, if you have any questions, and we can get, if you want to do a printer thread in the community, feel free if you want to start that. So you have a game mesh with a head and a mouth bag and a tongue. I would fill, if the mouth is closed and you want to 3D print it, I would get rid of that mouth interior. Otherwise, if you're going to print it on a resin printer, it will have like a mouth bag full of liquid resin, and it will never cure. And sometimes it'll leak out, and the resin will leak out of like a small hole, and it will never cure. It will look wet. Like sometimes we had a hole that we missed inside the eye socket, and it looked like the character was crying because the resin leaked out, and it would never cure. So yeah, you just want to fill every single hole in your model that you can, as far as like mouth bags and any holes like that at all. Just get them filled in. So, all right, guys, have a good one. And we will see you Monday on the Pixelogic stream. If not, we'll see you on Wednesday during the student-only live stream. All right, take care, guys. Have a wonderful weekend. We'll see you later. Cheers.